Warning, this content may be upsetting or disturbing to some audiences. What is your oh shit, I've got to get the hell out of here right now story? I was solo camping in the woods during a phase where I wanted to be a survival expert. I hiked out, miles from any roads or building, built a shelter and then hiked back the way I came. Less than a mile away from my camp, I found a dead coyote, decapitated, gutted, and laid out like a sacrifice or something. The eyes were gouged out and it was strung across a big, flat rock. A rock which I used as a marker on the way in, so I know it hadn't been there a day before. I ran out of there as fast as I could, knife at the ready, probably 10 miles back to my house. I still have no idea who would have done it, but I know I didn't want to run into them in the woods alone. Bad diesel fire at work. I saw the fireball billowing toward me, so I jumped in a pit. The fireball blew over me, and when it retreated, I got the hell out of Dodge. I got some gnarly third-degree burns, but I survived. A 500-pound hog got loose at the state fair and started charging right at me. I've never run so fast in my life. I was leaving for work at 5:30 a.m., while it was still dark. I locked the inside door handle and walked out the door, pulling the door closed behind me. As I turned around to walk off the porch toward my car, I saw 4 men jump out of a van and start coming toward me. The street was otherwise empty. My heart was pounding and I felt panic start as I was digging in my big, messy purse for my keys to unlock the door and get back in my house. The whole time, I'm just thinking they're going to grab me, shove me in the van, and rape/kill me. I was able to get back in my house before they made it to me, but it scared the SHT out of me. Turns out they were immigration's officers looking for someone who used to live in our house, and that is standard practice for them if they think the suspect will run. After I graduated from college, I finally landed an interview with a guy who was starting his own company. The economy was shitty, and I so wanted a job. I went in for an interview, and quickly noticed that he double-locked the door behind me. It was a small office in a strip mall. I immediately started to panic and then realized that no one else was there. He had me sit down, and 2 questions into the interview he tried to put his hand up my skirt. I was wearing a business skirt suit. I got up and ran, and thankfully was able to open the locks and get the hell out of there. My mom accompanied me to every interview after that for a while. My friend and I met at Waffle House for lunch. A guy came into the restaurant looking for a piece of paper that he had accidentally left on a table. The waitress didn't know where the paper was located and might have thrown it away. The guy got upset, saying the paper was important and he was going home to get his gun stored under his mattress. My friend and I quickly paid our check and got the heck out of the restaurant. When I was in high school, early 80s, I saw a lot of heavy metal bands. I had a friend who could always get us backstage after the show. So Anvil played and we went backstage. All of a sudden the lead singer said, "Okay, all the girls take off your clothes or get out." I got out. The rest of the girls stayed. I was driving north on I-65 in the middle of Indiana. The sky was getting dark, the wind was picking up, it started hailing. I turned on the radio to hear that a tornado was nearby. I determined it was behind me, going from SW to NE and about to cross over the interstate. Other cars were driving slow or pulling over because of the rain and hail. I was hauling ass to get away from there. I worked for an agency that helps people do their daily tasks for home health care. I had a man whose insurance prohibited personal care, like a shower. He was very upset during my visit when I declined his request for bathing. I felt bad at first, but soon the man became very angry with me. He accused me of all kinds of things and started pacing around room to room like he was looking for something. Between that and his spit/yelling rage, I slipped out of the house and drove to a safer place. I reported the incident to my employer and later found out that this person is a sex offender who had previously raped another woman. Who knows what he was planning that day? Maybe nothing, but I'm glad I left. I lived in South Everett, WA for a couple years. Was walking home from the bus stop to my apartment, which took me behind the Home Depot. Suddenly a van starts following me. I hear the side door slide open and look behind me to see a man with the top half of his body hanging out the slider door looking at me. I took off running towards my apartment, literally running as far as I could. The van started going faster. By chance a guy was pulling out of the driveway of my apartment complex, sees me running for my life, and stops. The van immediately turns around and speeds off. Guy asks if I'm okay. I ask him to just stay there and please watch me walk into my apartment, which was the building next to his. He did, thank God. I started carrying mace and a very large knife the next day. I was on a restaurant and they were using a propane tank to power an outdoors heater. Suddenly the tank started to catch fire and I got out quickly because I thought it was going to explode. The staff turned the tank off and everyone laughed at me for overreacting, but damn, I got scared, lol. My ex-husband came into our bedroom where I was sleeping and screamed into my ear, "You and your mom need to stop playing mind games with me." Understand, I didn't speak to him much to not set him off. He hadn't spoke to my mom in 3 months. Without looking at him, I walked downstairs in the dark to sleep on the couch. As I was laying down, a big ceramic lamp flew by my head and smashed against the wall. He followed me downstairs and I didn't hear him because the dogs came with me and their collars jingled loud enough I couldn't hear him. He'd been abusive, but after throwing a heavy lamp at my head in the dark I knew he'd kill me. I couldn't leave that night because he took my keys, but I ran away to a safe house as soon as he left the house. I was in Thailand back in 2010, on the southern islands after a full moon party. My friend and I were talking to 2 girls who invited us to play poker. We went and sat down with 2 German guys and 2 burly Thai guys full of tattoos and began to play. They were joking, friendly, and the buy-in was $10. We lost some pots, won some pots, and overall it was a happy experience. The Thai guys beat us and on the last hand I managed to claw my chips back to about $8. My friend was looking tired, so I gave him the nod. I thanked her for the game and I said we would cash out and we would be on our way. The Thai guys put a machete on the table and told us to FCK off. My friend, myself and the 2 German guys noped out of that situation as fast as we could. On the way back the girls caught up with us and apologized, but it meant FCK all because they were clearly in on the take. Lesson learned: if pretty girls ask you to play a game, it's for nefarious reasons. When I was 17 I met with a 23-year-old guy for a mall date. Can't remember his name for the life of me. I had just gotten out of a horrible relationship and was trying to distract myself. We had dinner and when the waiter brought the check, the guy told me he had forgotten his wallet in his car and that if I went with him he could grab it. I told him it was fine and paid for the meal myself. We went into a couple shops, but he kept asking me questions about my ex-boyfriend. Also he mentioned that he had been in jail but wouldn't tell me what for, and I was nervous. Then things came to a head when he kept saying, "Hey, just come to my car for a second please, let's listen to music," and kept getting increasingly anxious every time I declined. I was so scared, I immediately pretended to have a period emergency so I could get out of there, and luckily I had parked in a different lot than he did. I still have no idea what his intentions were, but man, that was terrifying. As a young teenager, maybe 13 years/0, I was camping in the backcountry during a summer camp in the Midwest US. Second to last night of the trip we started seeing mammatus clouds and the sky turned green, but no immediate rain or hail. Being the good Midwestern kids we were, we knew the signs and found a semi-solid shelter before the storm hit. When we got out of the backcountry we found out that 3 major tornadoes had touched down and gotten as close as half a kilometer to our original campsite. Some dude in my uni class, trying not to sound non-inclusive here but he was a special case, kept talking about his effed up life. Some things he done that made people fear him, because he was unpredictable. Brought a knife into class. Placed it casually on the desk. One of those big FCK off Rambo once. A girl in class was one of those mouthy types. Talked about him and he responded by getting her in a chokehold and threatened her. Smashed a pint glass over his head for no apparent reason, other than to show that he could. Ended up in hospital. Everyone stayed the FCK away from him, but only added to his paranoia. Everyone graduated and I stayed in that city for a bit. Bumped into him by accident in my gym. He told me I was one of the few who he didn't want to stab, kept myself out of others' business, but he took it as a sign of friendship and wanted to follow me back to my apartment to hang out. Told him I was going to work after gym. Never went back to the gym ever again. My husband and I were heading out of town. We saw a guy on the side of the highway pacing, under the overpass. I asked my husband to take the exit and go over the overpass and take the next exit to continue on the highway. The second we took the exit the guy jumped in front of a semi and killed himself. He was a freshman in college, The semi-driver was 72 years old and 3 weeks away from retiring. I cannot imagine what the driver is going through. I was walking to my house from my ex-house very early in the morning when I saw this little girl with a backpack running for her life from 2 big street dogs. At that moment I didn't think and I ran towards the dogs and missed a kick. The 2 dogs came after me, biting my legs and arm. They were out of control and these were like the longest 5 minutes of my life. I couldn't stop them from biting me. The little girl kept running until I didn't see her anymore. It was just me and the dogs attacking me. I tried to climb a fence to get inside a house but I couldn't when a taxi driver stopped and went out of the car with a short stick and he tried to scare them off, giving me a chance to run, and without thinking I got inside the car. The guy just ran a couple of times around the car with the dogs behind until he got in and he drove off like really fast. He took me to the hospital where I got a lot of stitches on my legs, arms and hands. That guy is my hero. Every now and then I go to his taxi stop and give them sandwiches or something. We never knew what happened to those dogs. I was driving in the dead of winter in Iowa. I saw this dude fishtailing all over behind me and going faster. Eventually he comes up on my rear, and I try to move over to let him speed through. My gut feeling was right, I just acted too late. He lost traction as he was passing me, and hit me, made me spin out, and I flew into a snowplow. Was waiting for the next bus in a bus station at 2 a.m. in Minneapolis. A security guard outside told me to stay within the camera zone. I sat down and waited, all alone except a couple of junkies in another part of the station. Suddenly a guy comes in, and walks up to me. This guy dressed in a black hoodie wearing a skeleton mask stood right in front of me, didn't say a word, just stood there and looked at me. When he started to walk away I bolted out of there, ran down the street and luckily found a 24/7 Walgreens. Was sleeping at a friend's house. Went to the kitchen to get some water. Her father hugged me from behind. I was 14, I guess. Never went to their house again. Ripped my pants while bowling. Incidentally, I was also going commando, and the meats and cheeses were fully exposed. I bowled a frame or two before noticing too. It was a second date. One time I was driving through Kansas in the middle of the night with my girlfriend on a road trip. Summer of 2017. We had issues with the car breaking down in Nebraska, and were spudding along until we reached Colby, Kansas, and waited for night so the roads were less busy. As we were driving along, not Highway 70 but just south to stay off the highways, a semi caught up to us. The car didn't want to go past 50 to 60 miles per hour, and I didn't want to push it and break down. Needless to say, I was going too slow for this semi-truck. For about an entire hour this guy is riding my ass, flashing his lights, etc. Never honked his horns though. I would slow down and pull off to the side a little bit to let him pass, but every time I did he would slow down too and give me a ton of space. It's now about 2 to 3 a.m. We are in the middle of nowhere coming up close to the border of Colorado. He is still constantly riding up to my ass and turning his lights on and off again. We finally come across a gas station and pull over to a pump on the right side. I cannot emphasize how literal I mean by middle of nowhere. It's flat deserts forever in all directions. It's an empty shell gas station that is closed and dark AF. We hope the truck will just pass us and we pretend to pump gas. This F-king truck slows down all the way and stops right there on the road next to us. He proceeds to back his truck up enough to pull into the gas station behind us, perpendicular to our car. I start loosing my SHT and looking around. I am standing outside of my car, and my girlfriend is screaming for me to get back in the car. This guy gets out of the semi and starts walking directly towards us. He is only about 50 yards away when I notice a small brown pickup truck sitting on the back side of the shell, eerily placed. I notice there is someone in it. I run towards him. As I get closer I realize there is a police badge painted on the side of this brown pickup and the man inside is actually an officer. I can only imagine what this guy on late night duty was thinking when I am running up to him. He rolls down the window with a confused look on his face. My girlfriend is screaming at me in panic as this guy gets within 10 yards of the car, while I am spitting about 50 words out of my mouth in about 2 seconds explaining our situation. The officer doesn't say a word and just drives around our car. The man notices and does an immediate U-turn back towards his truck, as the officer is yelling at him to stop. I hop back into my car, Look in the rearview mirror for a second to see the officer getting out to try to talk to this guy. I turn on the car, hit the gas, and drive into Colorado a few minutes later. If you made it to the end of the video, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe and share, and we will see you in the next video.